I now have the pleasure of welcoming our keynote speaker, Dr. Jasmine Simmons. As Krista mentioned earlier, our Usher ambassadors play an important role in building and supporting our community. Jasmine serves as an Usher ambassador for Florida, and we're so fortunate to have her on our team. Dr. Jasmine Simmons, a deafblind black audiologist from Ohio, holds a doctorate in audiology from Central Michigan University with an undergraduate degree from the University of Akron. Born profoundly deaf and facing progressive vision loss from Usher syndrome, her unique perspective fuels her advocacy for inclusivity in healthcare and employment. She's developing a children's book series to promote awareness and inclusion. She actively speaks about better opportunities for people with disabilities. She will speak on her experiences living with Usher syndrome and share some insights she has learned along the way. I have the very great pleasure of welcoming Jasmine Simmons to the stage.
I'm going to put my white cane away. Okay. Wow. It's an absolute honor to be here today. Good morning, everyone. I am a black woman with locks, and I'm wearing a black suit with a blue Usher syndrome shirt. I'm going to try to get my iPad on here. There we go. So thank you, the Usher Syndrome Coalition, for inviting me to speak with you all today. To the people living with Usher syndrome, friends, families, medical professionals, and allies, our stories matter. For the past several months, I've mentioned that I'll be speaking at a conference. And when I say Usher, folks immediately assume I was talking about the guy who headlined the Super Bowl halftime show. I imagine a lot of you know exactly the kind of conversations I'm talking about because you probably have them yourselves. According to the medical professionals and educators, I was not supposed to be standing in front of you here today. Both my brother, and actually he is in the audience in the front, holding the two phones, waving. But yeah, both my brother, who is 2 years older than me, and I were born profoundly deaf. And at the age of 2, we received our cochlear implants. My parents were told to have low expectations of us and that we probably wouldn't even surpass the 4th grade reading level due to the severity of our hearing loss. Let that sink in. We had barely just started to live our lives and we were already judged just based on a diagnosis. But I'm here today to talk to you about defying the odds. My parents thought that my brother and I were dealt with a certain hand of cards. However, we achieved much more than they could ever imagine based on what those doctors told them. To be clear, I'm not bashing any medical professional or educator. It was the 90s and very little research was available regarding cochlear implants within the pediatric population. Thankfully, my parents didn't listen. They pushed my brother and me to be the best versions of ourselves, despite, in quotations, our limitations. When I was 7 and 9, and my brother was 9, we were diagnosed with another key characteristic of Usher syndrome, retinitis pigmentosa. a condition that causes progressive vision loss. That news devastated my parents. However, because of the continued faith that my parents had in my brother and me, we were conditioned to be brave and to never take no for an answer. As I grew up, I was used to hearing no, or let's modify this or that. However, I was also used to doing what I wanted to do despite what others perceived my limitations were. When I was about 12 years old, I really wanted to learn how to play the violin. And my middle school at the time had Meet the Music Teacher Night, and I was so excited to attend. I went with my mom, and I knew exactly what I wanted to say to the music teacher when it was my turn to talk to her. I approached the strings teacher and said, "Hi, I have a hearing loss, and I want to play the violin. Do you think I can do it?" She then responds, "I'm going to play 2 sets of notes, and I want you to tell me if they are the same or different." So I listened. As she played 2 sets of notes, I responded confidently, "They're the same." Then she plays another set of notes. Once again, "They're the same." She played her final set of notes, and once again, "They are the same," I responded. Then she looks at me and says, "I played 3 different sets of notes, and you got all 3 incorrect. Maybe you should consider playing another instrument such as the woodwinds." That moment was nearly 20 years ago, and I remember like it was yesterday. I was crushed. It was something I have dreamed of doing, performing on the stage as a violinist. Now, don't feel too bad for me, because in retrospect, it turns out I don't have a musical bone in my body, so I don't regret not playing. However, I learned a very valuable lesson from that music teacher. Never let someone set limits on the goals that I set for myself. One of those goals, Thank you. One of those goals was to become an audiologist. I set this goal at 13 years old. I was deeply influenced by my amazing audiologist, Dr. Cindy Warner. She was one of the reasons why I'm an audiologist today. I wanted my patients to feel safe and empowered, as she has always done for me. Cindy, if you're watching this, thank you. The work that you did mattered to me. Although I had a phenomenal support system from friends, family, and professionals, I was still met with resistance when I told them what my professional and academic goals. People questioned if audiology was right for me due to the severity of my hearing loss. This story is far too common for people in the deaf and blind community. Our dreams, our ambitions, our talents are minimized instead of nurtured due to deep-seated systematic ableism. Remember when those doctors said I wouldn't be able to read well? Well, I managed to graduate with cum laude with an undergraduate degree and graduated with my Doctor of Audiology degree at Central Michigan University. You can say I passed the 4th grade reading level after all. Thankfully, I had an army of family, friends, and loved ones encouraging me to pursue the dreams despite the odds that were stacked against me. In fact, My disabilities have made me a better, more empathetic doctor towards my patients. You know what? I wish I can thank that music teacher. By telling me no, she prepared me for the many no's I would face along my journey and helped me cultivate the resilience and faith in myself to create my own yeses. To the parents and people living with Usher syndrome, I know you had your down moments. I know you had your difficult moments. And I know you had people tell you no. I know you have your own version of a violin story. I'm here to tell you that violin sucks and woodwinds are amazing. It wasn't until my mid-20s I was officially diagnosed with Usher syndrome type 1D, which is a rare type of Usher syndrome, which is already a rare disease. With that kind of luck, I'm hopeful for a lottery win one day. In February 2023, in February 23, I was diagnosed as legally blind. This moment changed my life as I sold my car and with it gave up some of my independence. Growing up, I knew my vision was deteriorating, and as a way of coping, I would tell people that I wouldn't be driving by the age 30. Well, the joke was on me. I stopped driving at the age of 28. When I stopped driving, I started to use the city's transportation system for people with disabilities. It's basically like an Uber, but for people with disabilities. One day, I had set my ride to get to work at 7:10 to get to work by 7:30. Usually, they're on time, but not that morning. So I called the company to ask the status of my driver. They stated that they were unsure why he was late, but he would be there by 7:25 a.m. My driver shows up at 7:25, and at this point, I was upset because one, I was going to be late for work, and two, I was reminded that I did not like to have to rely on other people to get me to work. I got into the car upset, but I calmly asked the driver, "What happened?" The driver then responded, "What do you mean, what happened?" Then I asked, "Why were you late?" You want to know what this man said to me? "It's just life." I had to make sure I heard him correctly. As you know, I'm deaf. And he stated again, "It's just life." Let me tell you, at that moment, I will admit, I lost it. I responded, "What do you mean it's just life?" I ended up getting into a screaming match, and he eventually called the company to report me because I was being unruly. And he probably was right. I eventually calmed down and broke down into tears in the backseat of this man's car. I explained to him that this is my livelihood and that I have to depend on others to get me to and from work. At that moment, I was feeling frustrated because I felt powerless. There was nothing I could do to change this situation. He ended up apologizing, and we were on better terms by the time he got me to work. A few days later, guess what happened? He ended up being my driver again. And you know what? He was at least 15 minutes early. We both learned a very valuable lesson from that moment. He learned the power and importance of the work he does to make things more accessible for people with disabilities. And I learned that he was indeed correct. It's just life. I live by those words now. We all have been dealt with a certain hand of cards. We have to understand that it is just life. We have to live our lives to the fullest because we only get one shot at it. My parents were always honest with my brother and me, which I always appreciated because it helped me prepare for where I am today. My parents had fears about their children's futures, and I bet they're similar to you parents of children with Usher syndrome. Will they be successful? Will they find someone that makes them happy? Will they be able to drive? As I got older, those fears became mine. I'm here to tell you that these are all valid questions and concerns. However, I want to share that you, your child, will be okay. I live in a different state from my family. I have a career. I have a fulfilling life. I date. I'm on the apps. And I have my independence. My brother is a business owner and happily married, and he's expecting a child next year. And my brother and his husband are in the audience, along with my mother in the front as well. Thank you. It is okay to have these thoughts and fears. There will be highs and lows due to our syndrome. However, we learn to adapt and accept those challenges. My advice to you, life isn't always going to be easy with having a disability, but it doesn't mean that life won't bring you joy. Having Usher syndrome has connected to me so many wonderful people across the country and the world. It has inspired me to write a book so children with Usher syndrome can see themselves in the story. I would like to add, because of my social media platform and my children's book series, the Usher syndrome series, more people also have an awareness of people like us. Awareness and representation are so important. Donations help, of course. However, the more we put a face behind Usher syndrome, the more people will care about what this syndrome is and see how it affects us all differently. I'm not saying go become an influencer or write a book if that's not what you desire, but be brave to teach what other this condition is because you never know who is watching. A few months ago, I wore my t-shirt from the Usher Syndrome Coalition. I'm actually wearing it right now. And the shirt says, Usher syndrome, the leading genetic cause of combined deafness and blindness. I posted a video of myself wearing it online. Someone then shared my post. A few weeks ago, I found out that someone got a question on their exam right because they saw my shirt. Not only did I boost their GPA, but now they're going to remember what Usher syndrome, and we never know what the ripples of that might be. You never know who is watching, and I want to challenge you to make someone aware of Usher syndrome in a way that makes you comfortable. By building awareness, we strengthen our community. As a friend told me when we first met, the Usher syndrome community is small but mighty, and I stand by that. By being involved with this conference, you are already immersing yourself in this community. We look out for each other, we support each other, and we help each other defy the odds. In the 90s, my parents were doing a lot of this by themselves, but you don't have to. Community is what helps us turn our violin stories into the lives that we dream about. Defy all odds. Help your children defy the odds. Be the person to defy the odds. And while you do it, just remember, it's just life. Thank you.